Ça marche pas ça.
La mis en on?
Ouais.
Le volume est minimum.
Là, ici, absolument.
Attends, ça met un deuxième, c'est bon.
Ouais, c'est bon.
Well, so we start the international ADC workshop. We have very few people online, but actually the initial version of the program started at 2 p.m. Finally, the reason why we have 6 people, I think they will come a bit later. But anyway, we record everything. We will release the presentations and the video after the event. I know some people who just left plan to follow the workshop from the cars on their phones. So we have a very cool bunch of presentations on the ATCP techniques, starting with Mikael and Daniel from Sweden. So we will start with this, then we will have Kevin over online on that project of WMO guidance document for organizing ATCP regattas. Very happy to have Chanjuli from Seoul, Korea, KICT, and they organize every year a quite large national ATCP regatta. So Chanju will give some feedback on this. Libor, if he can connect from the road, will present on the international regatta they organize every year in Czech Republic with participants from all the countries around, Hungary, Slovakia, Czechia, of course, Poland, Germany, Austria. Then I will present on what we do in France, on what we've done in the past years. Dave Mueller will be online with us. Is the main developer of CurateInt and CurateInt MS, two software for ADCP measurements. Martin is here. Yeah. You will present something from Poland. I don't know why. It's not why. Again, there will be a link with ADCP. You will learn critical measurements. Adrian from Brittany, so it's big part of France. About vertical identification, and then we'll be time for wrap up and therapy. So the room is yours. I leave the room to the suites.
Thank you, everyone. William, very good to be here.
Yes.
So, see if we can find my presentation. Anyway, I'm Michael Vannemark. That's next time in Sweden. This is Daniel Wenberg. It's next time Sweden. Really happy to be here, and thanks to the organizers. It was a good week. So I will start talking about distance measurement test that's really in Sweden, or just start doing that.
It's coming. Put in. Avec tout baisser ça. Ok.
Oui, next slide.
Yeah.
T'as pas la zapette, elle est.
There is a remote behind here.
Yeah, I think
Is it on?
Yeah, it should be on.
Yeah.
You have the beamer and you can change the slides.
Yeah.
You see how? Yeah. With the arrows.
Yeah. Perfect. So distance measurement test, it's also known as the beam alignment test. And what you do is that you validate some few, so it's very important parameters, namely the bottom track, which is almost that you also verify the water track in terms that you check that the alignment of the transducers are still valid. Because they are built in factory, they have a 20-degree leading angle, or 25, or 30 could be too. But that's not always the case. So you need to correct that with the matrix you see below. I'm making noise. Okay, so is that matrix still valid? So we try to store that matrix now because it's just a text file that you can store. So it's also important to verify that after sending the instrument to service and so on to the instrument manufacturers. We also check for the water temperature. And how do you do that? It's very easy because you just compare the distance made good from the bottom track to the GPS distance being traveled. And that should be equal to 1 or very close to 1. And the reason for this is that we have external reviewers that are trying to validate our work. So it's happening more and more often. And this validation is quite easy for any person to understand. So is this instrument close to the specifications surrounding the number of people to number 1? Okay. RS5 is this picture. Me and my dog and my youngest son is out trying the boat. Very fun. So what we did is that we rotate the AGCP 4 times, it should be. We forgot, so it was only 3 times, but still. And you repeat the test going a certain amount of distance. It should be more than 1,200 feet. So that's 365 meters. But it's also how accurate your GPS are. We use the RTK GPS, so it's like a centimeter accuracy. And we travel the distance between 2 buoys in the lake. So then we did another test with rear grounds, 2 of them. Those are really old, but still works very good. So they are also within specification. And like that, we rotate 45 degrees, repeating the test. And also we did this, me and my dog. Youngest son was fed up doing this. So you see now we have a screen on the side because it doesn't have a compass, it doesn't have a GPS on it. So that's why I used the GPS from the River Pro instead. Also RTK GPS. But I had a little bit too close to each other. So if you do this, Kevin Grandier told me that you should separate them by, say, 20 meters, just to be sure. So I hit start in winner 2, and then I hit start in winner 2 for the other instruments. And then when I stopped the test, I hit stop again on both systems. So it's close to be the same distance made good from the GPS. So I took the GPS from the Stream Pro, from the River Pro onto the Stream Pro, compare it. So, and more rear grounds and Stream Pro were tested. This time I didn't see any interference, but it could be a problem. Because you see, I did a lot of instrument setup, so it takes a little bit of time. You go like steady speed, steady course, and then you hit start, and then you continue steadily for 365 meters to the next buoy, and then you hit stop. And then you circle back, do the same transect once again. And steady speed and heading before you hit start. Maybe some other is on. Some interference here. Yeah. This is the test. My house is out there. The blue house, it's quite convenient for me. It's very close. So and this was the circulation, the transect that I did. And the GNSS or GPS lag test was carried on down there, you see. Just so I didn't have any lag between samples of the GPS with the samples from the ASP. Okay. And the bed is really smooth at its site. So it's a good section to try it out. Not only because it's close to my home. It's also, you see here, it's like 365 meters long, and it's the bottom is around 4 meters. So it's a reasonable depth. This is usual case for us doing measurements in. And this is the result of the test. So you see an RS5 on the left, but with a little bit different coordinate system. So depending on what coordinate system you choose, but it's still within specifications. I'm really not sure how, if I should use XYZ or the east, north, up for the bottom track. But you see, if I use east, north, up, they are really close to one. And if I use the XYZ, they are a little bit higher. So that you can see, but the east, north, up is that we usually do during discharge measurements. And then the others, you see it's a little bit higher tolerance. You see 1.015, that's the maximum that the test should be equal to. If you compare bottom track with GPS, that's the maximum value you should get. And the lowest is 0.985, and that comes from the manufacturer. So the 4 on the left is from RS5 and then the Stream Pro. And then I have the other instruments that have a little lower interval of what it's supposed to be. So Rio Pro is the yellow one, then 2 Rio rounds and 1 Rio Pro. Okay, but they're all within specification. They shouldn't be outside of these black lines. That comes from the manufacturer, those limits. So just a few discussions items that I could point out is, for example, if you have an RS5, how do you find the linear transformation matrix? I don't know if anyone in the room knows or anyone online maybe. But I do know from the Somtech M9 that you can have the rsmatrix.xd program from USGS, and then you can find the beam transformation matrix, and you can store it on your database or your admin tool as I call it. Or TRDI is always included in the ACP test. So if anyone knows the transformation matrix for RS5, don't know? Okay, and then I wasn't alone. Okay, and also what coordinate system I should use. I tried different coordinate system for the River Pro on the journey here, but then I didn't see any difference. It was the same result. So XYZ is not called XYZ for TRDI, but anyway, it's roughly the same as SHIP, I think it's called. So ENU bottom track compared to ENU GGA, which I used, or is it XYZ bottom track compared to ENU GGA? So I didn't use the V2G because it's a little bit less accurate in this part. Also, if you need to do another compass calibration, you do a 45-degree rotation of the ACP each time, and you really need to do a new compass calibration each time. And somebody is nodding their head. So I think, yeah, maybe you should. And it takes a little bit more time, but it could be worth the effort because you're using the information from the GPS. So it's probably a good idea to repeat the compass calibration because you are changing the settings of the ASP. That's why you need to do it. Or if you change anything in the boat, which you should do. Yeah. And also what I said, steady speed and heading before you hit start. And that's also included in the USGS standard for doing this, which we have adopted. And it's a quite easy test, easy to validate. No? Okay. Daniel. What?
Thank you. So we just wanted to give you guys an update on the upcoming Nordic International Hydrometric Workshop. So it used to be the Nordic Hydrometric Workshop, but then a lot of people from Australia, New Zealand, and the US came. So we decided it had to be Nordic International Hydrometric Workshop. I would say it started from humble beginnings and has grown quite substantially over the last decade. So last year we were in Scotland with roughly 140 participants, and as always, a big focus on hydrometry, which is what makes this event quite special for all of us working with ADCP system. So the dates are from the official dates are 23 to 27th of September next year, with an optional field day on 22nd, which is Sunday. And we have started to create a tentative program for fieldwork and visit the monitoring station to see how we do things in Sweden, contrast and compare to how everyone else does it, which is one of my favorite pastimes to do. I think it's important to know how to do things routinely rather than only focusing on the new things. And also for Monday workshops, we imagine this to be participant driven. So if anyone would like to discuss something that is of their interest, like for example, someone wants to talk about uncertainties, you can arrange for a small uncertainty workshop. So participant driven. We have a couple of ideas, like workshop for Bata or the RAM model, QREV uncertainties, density mapping, all those things. And then Tuesday to Thursday, there will be more presentations, more the standard presentation conference setting, and also room for some smaller workshops and discussions. So we have plenty of room for people to kind of move into smaller groups and discuss specific topics, and you're allowed to wander around freely. There will also be a concurrent poster sessions, of course. We're not sure about Friday, probably fieldwork or regatta. We have a suitable river very close, within walking distance, with an upstream hydropower plant. Perhaps convince to have a steady flow. For those of you who are not able to join us physically, there will be live streaming, and there will, of course, be recording. If you do want to attend but have problems securing financing, can send you invitation letters. You can show to your bosses, perhaps weaken their resolve against you traveling anywhere that is not in your country. So we are also hoping to get some manufacturers there, but only for presentations and demos. So we strive to keep it kind of waterproof between us organizing. So it will be very clear that it's us organizing. Manufacturers are only there to supply us with information. I think it's a fair statement. Attendance is free of charge, so there will be no costs associated with attending. However, food and lodging, etc. We have no idea how many are coming, so we'll probably try to figure that out somehow. But it's a new in Scotland last year, it was 140 or something. And the one before that, it was 40. So yeah, exponential.
Random.
I mean, there are a lot of hydrometrists around Europe and the world, so I think we serve our own workshop, even if it's Nordic. Okay, thank you. Next one.
Do you know the location already?
Oh, it's at SMHI in Sweden.
On top, SMHI Sweden.
Yeah.
Okay.
So within 1.5 hours from Stockholm or London for those who take flights. But there's also closer airports if you manage to find in there.
And train stations.
And transit airports, yeah. I think we can accommodate 160 people. So that's probably the cap to our facility to do it in-house. Any questions on that? Everyone is coming? Good?
Yes.
I would also like to do some a push for this website. It's ugly, but it's what we have. So as you may have known, there was a Yammer group for hydrometry hosted by the EA in England, and very much Nick Everard was very crucial for that. But they had to close it down, and we tried to kind of, can't you keep it running? But eventually we had to take a decision to, okay, so we don't want to use the entire user base. We don't want to use the entire user base. So we had to create something, and this was it, the International Hydrometry Group Forum. So please register, and we'll see about developing the functions in the forums more than they are now. They are a bit rudimentary and a bit confusing, but there is some activity, but as you know, we have to reach a critical mass of activity for people to start to participate more. But if we can substitute Yammer in some way, it's a great resource for asking questions about things that you need an answer to. Should I say something about the International Hydrometry Group? Yeah. So the International Hydrometry Group struggled with defining themselves as an organization, or it's a very loosely formed bunch of people who talks about hydrometry every 6-8 weeks or something like that, and we have some contacts with manufacturers and just try to keep ourselves updated with what's happening in SP world primarily, but also surface velocities and those emerging technologies. We are also funding jointly the production of QREV International, which you may have heard of, and perhaps in the news, which is a fork from the USGS QREV. And we're also developing the QREV Int mid-mean section, which is the QREV similar to QREV, which aims to process mid-mean section data in the same way, so that there's no difference between manufacturers. Do you have anything to add on the International Hydrometry Group? Good.
How do you register to the?
You just click form entrance and register.
On the website?
Yeah, on the website. And then you will have to give you access to the forms as a participant, because otherwise, if you had automatic registration, we would be flooded with bots trying to sell us weird things. Yeah.
I'm registered.
I think you've registered 3 times now.
Oh yeah. Several of me.
Yes.
Several me.
Any questions about this or presentations in this discussion? Yeah.
Yeah, question?
Yeah.
I might have something more here. But,
Yeah.
Shall I do that first?
Yes. Yes.
So this just made good tests. It's just like taking very discrete parameters and try to evaluate that one. It's very important parameters. If you want to do more comparison, it's more like this. Amazing activities that you've been doing in France. This is a picture from the Charon then, 2016. So then you more like compare all the parameters if you have a stable history.
Sorry.
It's a little bit feedback here. So,
That was
but then you have other problems. You have fluctuations, type selection, user, So this is just, I'll not go through it, but that's the theme alignment test or the systematic good test checklist from USGS. This example is for the River Pro, but it's the same. The top 10 is the same. Maybe you have to add that calibrated compass between each rotation. But this is the setup you go through to make it work. Okay, this is my good test checklist. So, and then you can check for no GNSS lag, which you go straight, and then you make a quick turn, and I should turn immediately the same. And then you turn back. So that was the example you saw further down the lake. So you can also have a look for GNSS lag if you do a loop test. They should also turn at the same time. So the information from the GPS is linked with the same ensemble as the water track. So you don't have a lag there. And it's also a lag in QREV software, QREV. So there you can also find if you have a lag. This is our admin tool where you can store the beam transformation matrix. You can have that checklist inside, and you can also have all the results that should be on the plot. So, and this is intentional left back.
Thank you. I was wondering how often you conduct your test about the TNG. So is it regularly every year, or when instrument come back? And also, do you have to make the GNSS effect if you have the lag in QA? The advantage of the unit test if you already have the lag in Q level.
If I have it in QREG, I don't know until afterwards. This is, so I know it directly. And if I could do something about it, which you probably know how to do, it could be avoided. You can decrease maybe the ping rate or hertz from the, yes, 2 hertz is enough, but people maybe have 10 hertz. That's a lot of data for each, for example. So you could maybe have 5 hertz or something. That's one way to do it. And if we do this annually, I'm not sure. This was the first test we did. So, and the Rio grounds we have is from 98 or something, 1998. So they are very old, but still valid on test. So I guess you don't have to do this quite often, but depending on the reviewers, I would say, the external reviewer that goes through your work. So you're trying to make your case that we validate our data in some way. Yeah. So with these regattas and compare it back home, this is a very discreet way to do it. But test one parameter is very accurately.
But I can imagine that external reviewers, they don't know anything about TNG test.
No, they don't. The external reviewers don't know anything about the TNG test, but they understand the number of 1. Yeah, that's easy to know. Is it not 1 or very close to 1? So I think it's an easy way to show that, okay, this instrument is within calibration specs. So I think it's a little bit difficult, but you go between 2 buoys and you compare with the GPS. So I think it's quite easy for them to understand. They don't have to understand the entire instrument of the ACT just to validate our work. So I think it's quite easy for the external review. Yeah. You're on? Yeah.
Thanks. Very interesting about your sorry. Yeah, we discussed similar things with Liz Jamison, for instance, in Canada. They do some tests like this. I think actually it's very. Is it my mic?
It's too close to the speaker.
Yeah. I think when you do this kind of test, I understand actually you are quantifying the systematic error on the bottom track. Do you agree with that? And I think similar tests could be used to estimate the bias or systematic error in the water track too, which is exactly what we don't quantify when we do this kind of ADCP regatta we have here, because we have no reference. So we measure the variability of the results, the precision in all terms. So, and for instance, in Oursin or uncertainty computation in QLS, there is one uncertainty component due to biases, systematic errors. And it's quite difficult to size or to estimate this component. And with blends and others, we thought of using this kind of DMG test or test made in calibration tests sometimes, because as you look at the cumulative average or cumulative error, then what you have at the end is free from random errors. It's really the systematic error in the mean, which is connected to that uncertainty component that is very difficult to estimate. So,
and it depends on the rotation too.
And we can see on what parameters and conditions it depends, which is really interesting.
Yeah, so it's a systematic error.
Yeah. But we don't have with the regattas.
Yeah.
Unless we have a very precise reference of discharge. Usually we have not
in regards like yesterday, they have a changing discharge.
All the worst.
Yeah.
So even worse.
Yeah, anything more? No? Yeah.
You said at the very beginning it's an arrow due to the beam, right? So it's a more or less half an arrow that can so this would mean that doesn't change over time with the manufacturer. That only needs to be tested once after you get the stable. Well, understood correctly?
Yeah. It's the typical manufacturers factor and the transducer are fitted, but are they changeable during time or anything? Probably not, but it's a way of reviewing it and should be equal to that number. So,
One-time test.
it will be a one-time test, but you should redo this after a major repair maybe and verify, do I have another big transformation matrix now? So, if so, that could be a good thing, just in this test. So I'm not sure if you have some sprays. Okay, no. So, yeah. This could be a good thing to download the new calibration metric, but that should stay the same when you do this test. Okay. Next person.
There's time for another question. We're fixing the sound. All the sound online.
Question or comment? Short question here.
Johanna, elle entend la fin.
Presenting some thresholds for like you said the manufacturer thresholds, it's not the USGS. The limits of agreement on equipment, yeah, those ones, they are from the manufacturer or from the USGS.
Yeah, this is from the manufacturers, is what it's supposed to be within specification. I think that now this doesn't work again, but in the checklist there is the USGS specification.
Okay.
But
Yeah, details.
they are a little bit harder. More restrictive, a little bit more restricted, yeah. But I guess that's the kind of instrument. But anyway, test like this shows it's still a good system. And if you see only 3 dots, that's my mistake. It should be forward rotation.
And do you understand why you have difference between the XYZ and the East North?
No, I don't know why I get a difference there. Really. But you see, it's very close to 1 if I have E and U, or the RS5 or XYZ up there. So I don't really know what's the cause of that. Yeah, one question.
I just shut the presentation, just the
Your presentation is very interesting. So, how many GPS do you use? I think this time cumulative. That's how many do you want or 2 or 3? So I think that this is a reference is a GGA. I think, but there is the question and also GPS. So I think our several GPS can display or something.
So there is an error in the GPS too, but I also travel a very long distance, so I think it should be okay. 365 meters compared to the RTK active service. So,
But it also should be some kind so long is enough, but we don't know about how accurate it is.
No. So the reference could be a little bit off. Do you think I should do a test the buoy placement with different GPS? We have done some verification on our GPSs on benchmarks and so on. Not the. Yeah.
Yes, we're trying to have Kevin sharing his screen. So, but thanks again, guys, and very excited about your next event.
Okay.
I hope we can do it by phone.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, Kevin.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. But there was a question for you, Mikael, in the chat. Hi, can the instrument detect discharge that is at the intersection of groundwater surface water interaction within the selected cross-section? You can see the question, I think, in the screen.
Well, they should detect the flow.
Discharge, to detect discharge. And some hypo-rate discharge from the groundwater to the. Not sure I understand the question.
I've done some tests with this for a company that wanted to start a new place where they should take water to a city. So they wanted to know how much groundwater is coming to the street. We can reveal this under repair of getting fresh water. So then we did tests in the street, outside and downside of where we thought that it should be. So if you have groundwater, but you should have well, it should be detectable in the discharge. If it's large enough and if it's errors, this was probably very small, barely considered. Total discharge, you can see a little bit increase of the discharge after we did that. So if I understand the question correctly, I think the answer is yes. But also be careful with temperatures and so on. But you don't want to be other temperatures. Maybe if it just has a minute. Too close, maybe, but it should be detectable. Maybe not steam, what the loss is. Depending on how much is coming. Sometimes you get in the riverbank, heating up on the ground. Not very common, but I've seen some of that. Should be a problem, possible to measure.
Thank you. Thanks. So Kevin will just check that we hear you clearly, but we can see your presentation.
Okay.
Can see you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Not sure we can understand. Yeah, speak slowly, and it should be okay.
Okay. And can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Oberg. I'm retired from the U.S. Geological Survey about 6 years ago now. So I put these pictures on the screen because I had the privilege of being in Chauvin in 2016. And I would like to have been there for your comparison this week, but I'm not sure which I missed the most, the actual field work or the food that you served there. So anyway, before I give my presentation, Jerome asked me to say a few words about the U.S. Geological Survey. USGS is a national agency in the U.S. that has a responsibility for monitoring assessing and delivering information on water resources. And that includes everything from stream flow, groundwater, water quality, water use, all these different things. And one of the things that I think is especially great about the USGS is the emphasis they have on a nationally consistent procedures and products. And this means that we not only did the USGS come up with standardized methods, but they also have a quality control aspect to the work where they verify that you're using the correct procedures and techniques. The other thing is that the data that we produce or USGS produces is freely available to anyone, including long-term data as well as real-time data. Am I speaking too fast, Jerome?
No, that's okay.
Okay, I'll try to be as slow as I can.
We hear you clearly.
Okay. This is a map of all the real-time gauges. There are approximately 8,000 stream gauges in the US that are used to compute continuous records of discharge. There are many more stage or water level only gauges, but there are 8,000 gauges that produce discharge records. And these data, as I'm sure is true in your own data collection program, but they're used for a variety of purposes, including operation of control structures, response to flooding or other disasters, providing information to those who forecast flows. And if this map is color coded or the stations are color coded depending on the condition of the flow at that particular location and at that moment. And of course, if you click on one of the dots that are displayed on the screen, the default presentation is a 7-day, the 7 days prior to the particular point in time. And you have data available to you in real time, discharge, stage, and anything else that is available for the user to obtain. And another thing that may be of interest to you is that, and just to give you some idea of the number of discharge measurements that are made in 2022, almost 78,000 measurements are made in the USGS. Of those, 91% were acoustic instruments, which I think drives home how important it is to first of all, have good techniques and practices, but to better understand things like the uncertainty of the instruments and so on. So now moving into the topic that I was asked to speak to you about, and I'm basically going to give a very brief overview of some work that we're doing to provide guidance on intercomparisons for flow measurements. This is the work that's being done for WMO. And if anybody doesn't know what WMO is, it is a specialized agency under the UN. And the emphasis in the World Meteorological Organization is idea of international cooperation and coordination in a variety of different topics. And the one that interests us most is water resources. It's also an international standard organization in these various fields, including hydrology. And you can look it up as to what else WMO is involved in. But under WMO, there is a project that's called Project X that is related to uncertainty. And the charge of that project, or the responsibility of that project, is to assess performance of hydrometric instrumentation and methods. And the goal is to do that through collecting information from existing reports, intercomparisons, validations of instruments, and so on. to share those reports and guidance about use of the instruments and methods, best practices, and so on, and to share those with national hydrometric services in countries throughout the world. And then, of course, to encourage and promote these standardized approaches wherever possible. Under the that Project X, one of the things that tasks was to assess the uncertainty of discharge measurements. And from that particular task, there are 5 subtasks, and the one that we're going to talk about is providing guidance for intercomparisons, or sometimes called regattas, for discharge measurements and techniques. The first 2 tasks, I think, are done or mostly done, maybe working themselves through the WMO bureaucracy, but pretty much done. Jerome and others may be able to provide more accurate information there. I think the last 2 items have not been fully completed, if I understand it correctly. So we're going to focus on this guidance and give you an update on that. Before I do, I thought I'd say something about just these 2 topics, validations and intercomparisons. I've spent a lot of my time in this particular area on validations, and I'm sure you grasp the concept, but the goal of validations, and particularly in the USGS, was to validate the instrument performance and to check that it is meeting the manufacturer's specifications. The other thing that's very important is to demonstrate the consistency of that instrument and method with previous instrumentation. So if you think about when ADCPs first were available, it was important to see that whether or not there was a consistency with discharges that are produced with, say, a mechanical current meter. And there is a strong emphasis on determining whether an instrument is inherently biased. And so that's a great importance, because we do not want to introduce biases into our streamflow records that are used for all kinds of reasons, including looking at climate change and things like that. Typically, validations, in my experience, have included both a field and lab component. The field component is very important because it's very difficult to test all aspects or validate all aspects of an instrument like an ADCP in a laboratory setting. And usually this involves many independent validation measurements under a wide variety of conditions, and including other factors, like for example, the experience of the people who are collecting the data. And this is done over a wide geographic area, as wide as possible. And then over time, these data are accumulated and then analyzed to determine if there's biases and what the performance of the instrument is. And intercomparisons, which you've been doing, I'm sure you know what they are, but for example, there might be goals of something as simple as getting a few people together, making some comparison measurements, analyzing them, and using it as a learning experience. That might be one goal. Or it might be to look into the effect of the measurement section, that is where you're making your measurements, on the uncertainty of the discharge measurement, or what role does the person who is collecting the data play in terms of the overall uncertainty. And as you would well know, they typically involve measurements at a single location or a single reach of river at the same time, and then involve many different instruments and teams, or it could be just a few, I suppose. And these experiments or intercomparisons are designed to address a specific goal. Whatever the goal or goals are, they're designed to address that. And just to give you an example of the validation, I'm not going to go into detail on it, but in the upper left, you have some plots that were created from efforts to validate the River Ray ADCP when it first came out. And so there are, I don't remember the number of data points that were used, but there's something like 60 or more measurements, and these data were analyzed and compared to a reference discharge and determined whether they were unbiased and what the performance of the instrument was. On the right, lower right, is an example of laboratory comparisons where we're testing, checking to see that the flow tracker ADV is producing velocities that are correct. And so what we have on this graph is the distance, is a percent difference between cart speed in a towing tank, and between that and the velocities reported by the ADV, the flow tracker. And on the bottom, the x-axis, we have the date in which this instrument was calibrated by the manufacturer. And you can see that in October, around 2010, there began to be some data that looked like they were biased. And in fact, there was a problem with the calibration procedure at the manufacturer's place. So it's very important to continually, in some cases, continually verify that the instruments are performing as they should. And of course, I don't need to use this example, but you have been participating in an example of a good intercomparison. But the one I participated in Chauvin in 2016 was, 24 different cross sections under and 48 different teams. So it's a very detailed and very involved experiment. More than experiment, but an intercomparison. So what are we doing in terms of providing guidance? First of all, there's a group of people on this team. I'm the newest member of that, so I know the least, I think. But it includes Libor from the Czech Republic, Juan Gonzalez from the US, Liz Jameson from Canada, and Jerome. I'm the newest addition, and I think I was added to the team because somebody had the mistaken idea that retired people have lots of time on their hands to do things like this. And I think that isn't really true, but the goal of this document is to provide information to persons who want to do intercomparisons. And what we're striving for is to identify the minimal requirements for doing intercomparisons. We want to make this available to anyone who wants to do the work, make it easy to use, and we're going to do that in part through providing some example of intercomparisons. And the other thing, the last bullet says we're designing it for, I would say, subsequent or analyses, maybe uncertainty analyses. So what we want to do is have data collected at least at some minimal level that could be picked up later by someone else, for example, and analyses of these measurements along with other intercomparisons could be used to identify or look at the uncertainty or other things. This is a overview or a outline of what will be in the document. And I won't go into any detail about this, just to say that it's pretty practical. It talks about how to administer one of these intercomparisons, identification of the objectives, and then things like what kind of skills do we want the people who are doing the work to have, some of the issues about instruments and instrumentation, some of the practical matters about the sites you would use for this and how to make things happen, and then how to conduct the intercomparison itself. You've experienced much of this week, I'm sure. I wasn't there, but I'm sure you had a pre-measurement briefing, and there was discussion about measurement procedures and so on. And we talk in this document about even simple things like what naming convention do you use for your data? How are the data collected by the persons organizing the event? And then we'll have some examples, and I'll just show you the two parts of two examples for your interest. This one is a very simple, in my opinion, very simple intercomparison event where each of these ADCPs on the right that are listed were compared against a flow from a stream gauging station. And you can see that the percent differences compared against the flows from the stream gauge range from, I think it's around minus 3% up to, you know, I think it's 2% perhaps. So they're all pretty close, but it's pretty simple, and that's the comparisons that were made. There was some effort by the authors to actually look at why some of the higher, what was the cause of some of the larger percent differences, but in general, fairly straightforward. They also included a kind of a very simple non-quantitative checks to see what of the teams that are listed here on the left side, did they do a compass calibration? Did they synchronize their clocks? Did they check the water temperature to see that the thermistor of the ADCP was correct? And then we'll have something that's a little more detailed, and one of the examples we're thinking of using as which is a little bit more involved, would be one that was done in the Czech Republic in 2022 that Libor organized. And so this is more involved than the simple example, but and it has information, all kinds of different information about this, the design of the intercomparison. You know, I think there were something like 30 groups here, so it's definitely more people involved and more instruments involved. So that's the brief overview. I hope that gives you some idea of what we're working on, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have. Hello?
Thanks, Kevin. It was a really good presentation and very good example of some standardization like work. We were discussing this morning about our investment in the National Standardization Committee. And
Jerome, I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear your voice. Yeah, that sounds better.
Yeah, I said it's a very good example of a collaborative work on some, it's not a standard, but some guidance document, and perhaps more efficiently than what we try to do with the ISO and the National Standardization Committees under the umbrella of WMO. So it brings some thoughts about the debate we had this morning.
Good.
I think. Thank you for that. Are there some questions from the room? Alex has already asked many questions, so I can create priority for anybody else, but you are the only one, so you will. So you will have a question from Alex.
Yeah. Hello, Kevin.
Hi.
I was wondering if this group would also like collect or at least list the regatta data that exists in the world, or maybe also the tools or software that are used to process and analyze the different regattas. Like having a huge database on the world regattas, that would be fantastic. So I don't know if it could be one of your objectives in that group.
Well, I think so. You're asking is one of our objectives to provide a mechanism or to have a goal is to collect the data, all the data that are obtained from an individual intercomparison and put it into a database. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, it's exactly that. Do you maybe collecting or just having a list of all the regattas and where to find the data?
Yeah.
And maybe also where to find the tools and the software to analyze the regattas.
This has not been something we've discussed in detail, except to say that we want to make it clear what what is the minimum that should be collected in order that later on someone could obtain that. But I think that your question is something that we need to resolve. I think it's a little difficult because there's no there's no place right now to gather that information. So maybe what we'll try to do is request that the results be stored somewhere that's publicly accessible. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the software either, but that's something we can talk about, I think. I appreciate your question. Jerome would know more about this than I do, so he's one of his desires, I think, as well as wishes.
Well, we started to collect some data, but we have not a formal database here. I just remember that WMO folks proposed or would like to set up some database or some online tool to share and collect data, but yeah. I don't know how much time it will take.
I was going to say, yeah, I think things with WMO tend to move very slowly, but yeah, that was something we asked for.
And that would be the right place, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's probably a mistake to require that all the data collected be stored. At the very least, you know, the measurement results. But again, this is something that needs to be discussed, I think.
Alex again, or somebody else? Struggle with Alex, so otherwise he will ask all the questions. He can do it.
It's a short one, Kevin.
Yeah.
I don't understand if the document was dedicated just to ADCPs or it could be adapted to any kind of measurement methods. And what do you think about conducting regattas for other methods? We had this discussion this morning, and we think that, I mean, for current matter, it's more difficult, and maybe for dilution, it will be even more difficult to conduct regattas. So 2 questions: is your documents focused on ADCP or not? And what do you think about the how easy is it to make regattas for other techniques?
Yes, it's a good question. It's something that I myself raised not too long ago with the group, and I have had one reply to my inquiry. The way the document is presently written, it is oriented towards ADCPs. I had in my mind, I've been working on the document, I had in my mind to say a few things about involving other instruments, for example, a flow tracker, for example, or in a point velocity meter, whatever it is, or some LSPIV, for example, surface velocity, I would say rather. And one person's assessment is we should just use ADCPs and more or less tell people you can adapt this to these other instruments. I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it. I think it might be worthwhile to say a few things about what might be required for these other instruments. For a flow tracker in midsection, it's just the only difference is that you're collecting point velocity data and versus ADCP, and you have to weigh the stream. So at the moment, the way the document is written, it's for ADCPs, and the intent would be then to say, well, this is for ADCPs. You can adapt this for the other instruments. So I think it's not determined yet. We haven't had too much input on how we should approach that, because I did raise that question. So I say this all because I've been at regattas where they've done surface velocity weighting measurements and ADCP measurements. And I think that's a good thing. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks again. And thanks for making it. I know it was not very easy for you, so very much.
It's fine. Have you
Very
taken
much
back
appreciated.
control? Yeah, you have. Good.
Yes, okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
So now we move on, we travel east to Korea, another continent.
Okay, so my name is Chanji. I'm very glad to live here. So I have been to Showa, South City. Then this is the next time to come to the close to new. Yeah, so today is my party is ADCP measurement in laboratories in Korea. So this is a short context. So we have some. I need to present some status of the National Hydrometry in Korea. We have the Organization for Reverse Control Remote Peace, Ministry of Environment, and they operate the hydrometry network all over the country. And KIHS, Korea Institute of Hydrometric Survey, they are in charge of the discharge management and the hydro survey things, and other bodies, including National Institute of Environmental Research and K-Water is who in charge of the dam management, and KN Korea Hydropower and Nuclear Power. So company to control the hydroelectric power dams, and KRCC is some kind of body to control the reservoir for the agricultural use. This is a short homepage website of them. And in last year, we have total more than 600 of rain gauge stations and more than 800 of water level and discharge. Discharge is only made in the among the water level gauging station, but different. And segment discharge is 32 and like that. And we had Han River and Nakon River and Green River, Yongsan River. Most of them is made by KIHS and other institutes also with some discharge measurement. And this is our yearly hydrological measurement in KIHS, including normal discharge management and automatic discharge management and segment discharge management. Yeah. And in 2000, around 100. But now we're up to more than 300 discharge management in stations. And most of them, around 240 is the normal discharge management. And we operate around 60 automatic discharge management gauging station. And for the normal discharge measurement, on-site measurement, so we only start our force 70%, 75% of using ADCP. So all other methods are on. And only about 20% is handled ADB, and during the flood, we only radar surface below directly for 7%. This is the solution. So we all we use ADCP very much, and also mechanical and other methods we use no more. Yeah, this is the background of our Korea's ADCP measurement laboratory. So there's the increase in ADCP, you know that since 2010, Now we have 170. I'm excited, but yeah, 138 LDCPs we have. And then this is sometimes having said about the validation. So the ADCP is exactly the ISO 34. Anyway, that testing, current method by total testing, they are exempt. So they know, and we have no validation for the ADCP until now, and the policy control is still needed. And I attended the one ADCP interconference in 2016 in France, and 2009 I have been to FDH, actually I don't know the name. So, yes, yeah, yeah, right. I was invited to join, and yeah, that is the start of the motivation. So I motivated our KIHS members to do it. Yeah. Oh, let's do it. Same. Yeah. And then the real scale experiment channels. I want to introduce this one. This is where we have the more than 500 meters, and top this is around 10 meters, and you can supply water during by the pump up to. Yeah. This is the situation. This is on-site marathon 2019, and this is a KICT REC marathon 2010, and yeah. This is a nearly annual event, and this is almost mandatory. It's not mandatory itself, but you know, in Korea, so I want to ask the people with the organization to join. They don't have to say no. Yeah, so this is it. And we do that in some preliminary thing, 2016 and then 17. And 2020, you know, due to COVID, we didn't do that. Now, and next week, we will do that again. It's the same. Yeah. And then Barry showed me that we have a lot of LSPs there. Sorry. It worked now. Yeah, it's great. Good one. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. We have 4 on-site campaigns. Our 2021 and 22, we did it in our KSCP, and this is relative difference. And yeah, so you know that the on-site is kind of problem. It can keep stable water and stable flow, but it can't because of the rain or some kind of operation of the dam, something like that, and some kind of intake from some close some intake station. We don't know that because this belong to the agriculture. Don't know about that. So that is the thing. In 2018, the second day, so 1 kilometer, 7% of the discharge time decreased. But this is our advantage. We supply water always stable. And then one thing, I analyzed, I gathered some data from the ADC data set, which was 4 or 5 year consecutive years participation. Yeah, from 2017 to 2022. So 42 ADCPs participate in course of consecutive years. And 23 is in this 5, and at least 5 twice, and 3 2 thrice. Yeah, and 3 are put into instruments, it's in 10, etc. Yeah. But when you see this consecutive years there is nothing, no ADCP to showing the continuous outlines. So we may conclude that this is some kind of random, but the bias kind of, we don't see the continuous outlines. Yeah. And with the help of the inline, I don't, yeah, because I do a lot of things, and then one of my interest in the ADCP, but nowadays I don't pay my attention to this a lot, so I need help. And but I give him all my data set. I'm happy, yeah, because whoever selects the data set in the whole world, he should be. Yeah, I think so. Yes.
But the work power is.
Yeah, good. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is I don't say talk about this a lot. Just and some we have unique thing is we have right left. Actually, this uncertainty is the largest part of our uncertainty. You know, we have small width. That I think that is the main cause of this region. So you know, but top bottom or the other things are a little bit stable. We have a lot of these. That's why I want to enlarge the external channel. I guess I can, because we have some money. I can push my organization to do that for the existing method. This is the last year version. We've seen some kind of large ADCP uncertainty. Most of them come from the River Ray or the Rio Grande. That is the deeper river ADCP. So you understand that. But I don't understand RSI. Maybe it's some kind of help. Anyway, so this is a summary. So we have uncertainty of this. Except Rio Grande and Rio Ray, so it should be reduced like this. Yeah. And this is our external facility. So you see we have two state channel, one the meandering channel. In this area, we built another channel to use for the ADCP or other point task. We are now building it, so it takes some time to complete. But I think that will be some very important place for ADCP validation. Yeah. If you come to Korea, so please let me know. You should this one. This is short video to introduce. Simply. This is our Korean English broadcasting. I want to show you. Yeah, this is.
To preserve river ecosystems and promote eco-friendly development. This week's lab
and we tested some imported material.
streams.
That's it. Okay. So much. Yeah. if you talk to me or ask me to video or something, something into this like IC,
An exterior picture.
she is very good at absolutely. She's almost like a machine. Yeah, okay, good. And for the initiative developer, we have pros and cons. Pros, 4 pros and 2 cons. We can give a stable reference discharge from 1.2 kilometers per second to up to 5 kilometers per second. I guess we can give more than 1 meter per second velocity to the ADCP and basic cross-section. And same and beautiful condition. So we need not to get it together at one time. If we supply same water, if we come to any complex with it, I said ideal, but I think so. And we can do some concurrent convention with the NDV or other things. And I think that we can make various bed conditions. We have now sand bed. We can put the gravel into our bed, or we can make concrete, or we can plant the base station to the simulators. And you sometimes you suffer from the base station to the bed. Very slow water. Some people suffer from the base station to detect the riverbeds. We can and make this for the state or the cost. And but still have cost. Narrow cross section. I have in consultancy not that big, up to 1.5 meters. And we have for not serious problem. We have seepage on the riverbed. So upstream of our testing reach and downstream reach around 0.5% as virus. Yeah, so because of the channel is built on the sand, geology. But for me, so I like to the same book processing system and realignment of cross-section for the ADCP comparison. It's not depend on some people's skills. So advice, and I showed you some and do that in the total system. Yeah, and this is and we had the one-time training courses. We can do that again. Then we can do the PMG test also. This is the huge. This is this year we want to issue this kind of test sheet. Everybody who and give it as a record. This is okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanju. Very interesting. Is there any questions? But Alex, no, some questions. Alex, one? Yes. Hello, David. Yeah, Alex. No,
I just have a question about vegetation. You can test the vegetation. Can you explain us how you take the
into account.
The vegetation on your core operation system, the operational system.
Maybe the vegetation on the bottom or the upper vegetation can make the bottom track growth. So in that case, if we make measurements, so we can get good result, we cannot get. So some people reported that kind of problem. Very slow flowing river. So we can't reproduce that situation by planting water. Just do it, just leave it on the bed so they can grow. Or we can grow some station to quantify the effect on the measurement issue.
No, my question is not about the measurement, but
Comment ils placent de la végétation dans le chemin?
non, c'est sur les compétences,
Ah.
ils ont l'habitude de traiter l'influence des
The question was about rating curves. How do you cope with rating shifts due to the growth of aquatic vegetation?
I have never thought about that, but you can. I think that it is possible to do that also. But this channel is used all times in the year, but we can use the other the channels to test that kind of things. It's possible.
But do you know how at the hydrometric stations of Korea,
Yeah.
if they have aquatic vegetation growing in their river,
Yeah.
how do they manage the rating curve? You know, the stage discharge.
Yeah. Normally, we PIHS ask to the government to remove the. In Korea, there is most staging stations have the reasonably fast flow, but some stations controlled by the dam water, some weird. They made a problem. Then after they observe the things, they remove normally.
Okay. Yeah, David is asking this because in France it's a growing concern. Aquatic vegetation is.
Yeah, but for the measuring section, they should be removed.
Other questions?
You showed at the beginning that the number of stations carrying tests were increasing a lot.
Yes.
And can you explain why? And do you think that the trend will continue? We'll have more and more stations in the future?
Yeah, that's a big issue. Not big issue. Because so Korean government wants to expand some gauging station and expand measurement. Now most of the measurement was made in the national rivers and post-grade local rivers, but government, especially flood control office, they want to increase the number of gauging stations because of most of the small rivers controlled and measured. There is no information about the discharge, so that's why always increasing. And then I think that it is always increased, maybe around 1,000. Yeah, and we had a lot of fun. And some people installed the LSPAV or the radar surface glass measurement, the small rivers, for some easiest to measure one. So it should be more than 1,000, and then their station also need to be better. So I think this is too much. Yeah, too much, but they do that. They try to because of the easiest problem, and that's why it increased.
And the number of people, the number of employees is increasing at state level?
Employees are standing, but there are they hire the one they make contract.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Thank you.
Just maybe last question. The total you are building, it will be still water on the moving cars, or it will be flowing water?
What?
You told us that in your facility,
Yeah.
you will have a new.
Yeah, we can make grow, whether we can make it.
Okay, with a moving car.
Yeah, we want. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandran. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay, we'll go with that mirror before Ivo. So has some projection problems, so we'll start with this. So curate the images and curate the awareness.
Voilà. Ça marche comme ça.
Yes, we can see your screen, Dave. It's okay.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about QRevInt and what will soon be released as QRev MS. And I apologize for my voice. I have overcoming a cold and sinus infection, so bear with me. I want to begin by acknowledging those that have contributed to this development, providing funding and research and coding, and particularly to NVE, who has really coordinated the whole international hydrometry group and coordinated the funding and development. But without the support of all of these people, either through coding, research, and funding, none of this would have really been possible since I retired from the U.S. Geological Survey about 5 years ago. To start off with, the goals for QRev, be it the original USGS version, the QRev int, or the QRev MS, is that we wanted to be able to process both SONTEC and TRDI data. And I think in most cases, we can also process data from NORTEC. We wanted to standardize the processing algorithms, and I'll show a couple of examples later to where you can see the difference in the algorithms. We wanted to use the best data available, and in showing the differences in algorithms, I'll illustrate how that makes a difference. And then use the best interpolation method when the available data to estimate values for invalid data. We wanted to automate the data quality assessment and feedback. This was really a key driving feature that, particularly for newer users, they didn't always know how to evaluate their measurements, and many of the evaluations can be computerized and automated using statistics and just the experience of those that have made many measurements and computerized that assessment. Ultimately, we wanted to provide an automated uncertainty estimation. For the guys in the field, I felt like it was really important to provide a logical workflow. Often we hear from the software from the manufacturers, all the tools are there, but they're just there. They're not in any order, so that the user doesn't really know which tools, which graphs to look at when. And the goal here was a logical workflow, and then to provide specific graphics to support the user analysis of whatever topic they were looking at of the measurement. So QRev was originally developed while I was with the USGS, and Travis Knight is now kind of taking over that coordination and development with the USGS. When I retired, I was approached by the International Hydrometry Group to continue to do development. And because I no longer work for the USGS, I could no longer speak for the USGS. So I developed or forked the repository. It was all open source, and created QRev International and began to expand features.
Within the last year, Travis and I have worked closely together, and we now have a common code base. So there really is the only difference between QRev and QRevInt is sort of the logos and the branding, and then some agency-specific configurable options, things that we have in the international version that the USGS hasn't necessarily approved, are just differences that different organizations want to use as default values or have available as options to them that maybe the USGS has not yet approved. The success of QRev is sort of beyond my wildest dreams and has expanded greatly. And that led to, gee, can we have QRev for mid and mean section measurements? And that is where we released and have been releasing a beta version called QRevInt MS. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to release the first version 1 of QRev MS, which will no longer be beta, while QRev and QRevInt used Wind River, River Surveyor Live, and RSQ. The mid-mean section will process section by section pro data, River Surveyor stationary live data, and RSQ stationary data. When we look at the opening screen of QRev or QRevInt, we see a number of things. The first thing is we have a color coding, sort of like a stoplight or a traffic light, where we have warnings, caution, and good. And then also a blue, which says, hey, the user changed something from the default. Anytime there is a color other than green, there will be a message down in the message window. Also, you can click on a row designating any transect in the measurement and see a color contour graph as well as a ship track plot. You can see the time series, the heavy line indicating the measurement that's currently, the transect that's currently selected, the running mean, and then also the 5% deviations from that mean. And then the extrapolation. This is combining all of the data from all of the transects, showing the data, and then also the used extrapolation method. We have an assessment of uncertainty. This one uses the ARSIN method and shows the results so that the user can determine where their greatest uncertainty is coming from and maybe make adjustments to their measurement procedures to reduce those uncertainties. We tried to provide a consistent and logical progression. So we begin with the pre-measurement quality assessment. So we want to have compass calibration, moving bed test. We build on that by getting the boat speed, then the depth, then the water velocity, because we need both depth and boat speed to compute water velocity. We need all three to compute discharge. So it is a progression top to bottom, and in the software, the tabs are arranged left to right. It's the same basic user interface for QRev MS. The tabs are very similar, but now the data is presented as a midsection or a mean section measurement. The output is essentially the same, except we've now swapped the MATLAB output file for QRevInt, and we've added a compressed JSON file format, which is a little more open source type format rather than relying on MATLAB. We've added for the MS an Excel summary file. We have an optional PDF summary report for MS that will be coming soon for QRevInt. This just illustrates a bit of the lack of consistency for the moving boat. So this would be River Surveyor Live and Wind River 2, and how the two softwares differ in how they handle certain situations, particularly when it's related to invalid data. And what QRev attempts to do is to standardize this so that no matter which instrument you collect the data with, it gets processed the exact same way. So there's no difference in the processing once you've collected the data. To illustrate this, for the moving boat, I'll pick on TRDI and Wind River 2. For the mid-mean section, I'll pick on Sontec, so I'm not being biased to any manufacturer here. But this was a measurement that was collected during a flood off the downstream side of a bridge. And you can see that they lost bottom track here and here, and therefore they've got no discharge. The way Wind River works is you must have both the navigation or boat velocity, you must have a depth, and you must have water track data, or it's going to mark the whole ensemble invalid. Well, they didn't have depth, so they marked the whole ensemble invalid. And the way Wind River 2 works is it basically increases the delta time such that the next valid ensemble is back propagated. So with the boat moving from left to right, the next valid one gets back propagated and filled in. And you can see the big discrepancy in the depth between whether you're going left to right or right to left. It filled in high velocity data, and it got a resulting discharge of 112,400 cubic feet per second. I apologize for the English units. QREV, on the other hand, said, well, I don't have depth, so I'm going to linearly interpolate the depth from the data that I do have and fill in the gaps. And because I also have GPS data, I know I have nav data. So the only thing that was missing was depth. By linearly interpolating that depth, we were able to use the water data. And my initial reaction was, oh, great, we did this, and the water data is not any good. The truth was that there were bridge piers located just in those locations, and the reason they got no data was because of the turbulence behind those bridge piers. They lost the bottom track, likely due to increased sediment transport immediately behind the bridge pier. So there really was no downstream flow behind those bridge piers. The result was a discharge of 95,000. The 112,000 was way off the rating. The 95,000 hit the historical rating very, very tightly and turned out on subsequent measurements to be the correct value. So how invalid data and how data are processed are very important in the process of computing a final discharge. And I believe making use of the data that you have, rather than, in this case, they threw away their water track data, they threw away their navigation data, all because they missed some depth data that could have been at least estimated better than a straight line estimation. So when we look at the mid and mean section, there's a problem in how you handle non-uniform cell sizes when we think about creating a mean profile. Because the newer ADCPs now have auto-adaptive modes, they change frequencies, they end up with inconsistent cell sizes at a given vertical. For TRDI, they basically find the smallest cell size and interpolate to the smallest cell size. Nothing mathematically wrong with that, except they report then that you have maybe 27 depth cells, when in fact most of the measurement you maybe only had 8, and a couple of them had real small cell sizes, so they expanded those and interpolated, so it gives you a correct answer but a false sense of the resolution of your data. The real problem lies in the way Sontec has historically treated this data. Is they only use cells that match the first ensemble. So if things change after that, that data is not used. QREV MS is doing something differently and a little more complex in that it's making use of all the data and interpolating to a common cell size. illustration of that here is a measurement made with River Surveyor Live, and you can see that for section 3, it only had, even though they averaged for 40 seconds, they only had one sample. When we look at that in QRev MS, we see that in fact, they had a lot of data. They collected 40 samples, but the very first one had a very different cell size. So what Sontech did is they threw away all 39 samples, and that particular vertical was estimated on only one sample. In QRev int MS, we make use of all of these samples by doing an averaging and a weighting and an interpolation and make use of all of the data rather than throwing data away. And I think that illustrates also the capability here that we can see the ensemble data. We can see the individual samples in QRev MS that you can't see in Section by Section Pro, that you can't see in River Surveyor Live or RSQ. Now you can actually see all the data that was collected during a particular vertical, not just the result of that vertical. The other thing that QRev MS brings to the table is automated extrapolation for the various verticals. So every vertical now gets a individual extrapolation automatically, and the user has the option to change that. But as we can see in this illustration, the velocity profiles change pretty dramatically from the various locations illustrated on the color contour plot here. Now, if we look at the difference it made in discharge, or whether the mean velocity for that vertical, you can see it ranges from about -1% to about a +2%. In the end, does that average out across the cross section? Maybe. So the final result may not be all that far off, but the truth is that using a single extrapolation method for each vertical really isn't representing the data properly. With QRev MS, we do have the ability to look at each individual vertical and either let the automated process do that for us, or to look at it and manually adjust our extrapolated values. And finally, thinking about future enhancements of this software, we certainly want to add additional and improved uncertainty models to both the moving boat and the mid-mean section. Their plans, the USGS has developed a software enhancement to estimate the alpha for surface velocity methods. And as soon as that gets approved in their approval process, that will get integrated into QRev int and QRev int MS. We want to investigate varying the extrapolation methods across the transect for moving boat measurements. As we saw with the mid-mean section, that velocity profile does vary. One of the things I think that is important is to provide some expert suggestions and explanations associated with the cautions and warnings. Now we give cautions and warnings, but often the user still doesn't quite know what to do about it. They know they have a problem, but they may be unsure how to deal with that. And I think we can add that into the software. There's a huge demand for some online and on-demand training, and there is ongoing discussion of support for point meter measurements, either flow tracker or mechanical, to be built into QRev MS. So a lot of work yet that can be done, providing that the various parties are involved, provide funding, provide coding and research to meet these needs. And with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Are there some questions in the room for David? Blaise, Alex? No?
I am meeting every month with Dave, so. Yeah, maybe just one point, Dave, because so, hey, Dave, it's Alex.
Yes.
We are in France, so maybe can you just say a word about the translation or the multi-language platform for Curev? Thanks.
Yes. I'm not directly involved in that, but Travis, with the U.S. Geological Survey, they are committed to doing a multilingual translation ability for QRev, and that will obviously transfer into QRev int as well. We have, when we coded the software, we put in a translation option, and I think Travis has got that all pulled together. And what we're looking for, or he is looking for, are volunteers to work with the linguistic software that he would provide and give instructions and basically make the translations. So if people are in the audience that would like it translated into their particular language, you can contact me or contact Travis directly, and we would be happy to coordinate getting those translations built into the language to make it easier for you to use these software tools.
Okay, another question? On the chat, no, there is no question. Dave, it's Jerome. Jerome, about QRev MS, I understand, as far as I understand, you still need the stationary software from RDI and the equivalent option from Suntech. You cannot use, I mean, you cannot circumvent the paying options. I mean, using Wind River, for instance, measuring stationary verticals, and then using QRev MS without the option, right?
Currently, that is correct. That if you used Wind River to collect verticals, it does not support that at this point. You have to have used their section by section pro, or use River Surveyor Live, River Surveyor Stationary Live, or the RSQ stationary option.
Okay. And
that is certainly something that could be done, I think, in the future.
Right. And other questions? No? So thanks again, Dave. It was great. And thanks for all the job you do on this very useful software. More and more people are happy to use it in France and everywhere in other countries. It's really a great job.
And I appreciate all your contributions, particularly on the uncertainty. So it's good. It's been good to work with everybody.
Okay, yeah, it's a pleasure. So now we try to move with you, Libor, if you're ready to share your screen.
Yeah, the question is if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Oh, thanks God. Probably my laptop is as tired as I am after the journey, so that's the reason for the confusions. Anyway, happy to be back in France. I'm sent my greetings from Prague. My colleagues drove really quick, so I'm able to stay in my headquarters in Prague and give a presentation. So I'll try to share my screen. Is it okay for you to see the presentation?
Yes, not full screen, but yes, okay. We can see the.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we see the speaker. Could you swap to the full screen? Yeah, I think you have to swap this.
Okay.
We see this, the speaker mode with the.
You see
Try
the,
it again.
oh,
Is it better now?
yes, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry once again. So I'm glad to inform you about the event that took place in our country last year, especially in the southern part of Czech Republic called Run of Nadi. Many of you took part there, and I'm glad for your participation there. And for those who did not have a chance to meet with all of us there, I give a brief summary. As for the institution that I'm a member of, it's a Czech Hydrometeorological Institute, and we are a government service that is the combination of water prediction and all the water needs, then the meteorological and climatological department, and even the air quality protection, and all under one roof, but departed in 7 regional districts, with the headquarters in Prague. And me and my colleague Jan Irák, who was there as well in France these days, we are the members of a small department in the northern part of Czech Republic, where we take care about local water stations, even the snow monitoring and all the stuff around. Many people say that it's quite a good advantage to be such a one institution that covers all these departments and all these environmental sections. And that's why we can cooperate quite well, and the cooperation is tight. As for the hydrology, we cooperate at the level of surface water, groundwater, and even the water quality. As for our station network, it consists of more than 500 gauging stations. We are quite mountainous. We have quite mountainous boulders and flat central areas, and that's why the network is concentrated mostly on the borders, where the monitoring of the streaming and smaller rivers takes place. And we have no river that comes to our country, so there is only outflow from our country, which is centered via the river Elbe, via the river Morava, and via the river Odra that goes to Poland. Maybe many of you knows my chief, Jan Danielka, who's a chair of WMO Hydrological Coordination Panel as well. So we got quite a good cooperation with WMO. And this is the good point to mention that the event I'm going to talk about was greatly supported by WMO, and I want to thank you to all who participated on this. As for the event and on the participants, you can see the map with the participants who arrived to our place. As you can see, most of them are settled in a region of Central Europe. Mostly our colleagues from border or trans-border cooperation, like in Germany, Poland, Slovakia, or Austria. But we were very glad that even teams from Spain, even from France or Slovenia came and took part. Just a short or brief information about the participated countries. As I have mentioned, there were mostly all the surrounding countries, but there were even some academic teams from Charles University in Prague or from Wrocław University in Poland. We were glad that Lee Pitbull arrived from Sontag, and there were even Mikolaj Vidrich from TRDI, and as the specialty, there were even our Czech army forces who are just on the beginning of using ADCP, so it was like first touch with such an instrument for them. As for the event itself, I think that the most important is to have a look at the event web pages, where all the information, even photos, even raw data, and finally even the final report is possible to download here. And there's there should be all of these data, I would say, forever, so there's no hurry to have a look at these web pages. Just a short look at the venue of the conference. It took place beside the dam of Vranov in a quite good hotel with very generous background. So more than 80 people were able to stay there and participated on the event, like in the conference part, even in the field work. Just briefly, the motivation for organizing such an event. So one of the motivation was the absence of guidelines. That's the part of the cooperation with WMO, where me and many of you, like Jerome, are participating in Project X team, where we try to bring some guidelines which are useful for ordinary users of ADCP. And this meeting, or even this regatta in France, is one piece in a puzzle called Guidelines for ADCP's intercomparison. And we hope that in future months we will develop a useful guideline how to assess the ADCP regattas. Yeah, that goes hand in hand with all the metrology purposes, which are usual reason to organize it. When we organize it like for our institution, where all the field users from our hydrological department come in one place and we compare the results of ADCPs. That's the same reason that we don't compare only the ADCP results, but even the methods and operation, how to operate with the ADCPs. And we try to keep in touch with the actual methods in evaluation. So we try to learn, or we try to teach the users how to work in QREF and now in QREF Int as well. Yeah, as the result, there should be some data quality improvement in the whole hydrological department. And if there's a chance to meet with foreign guests, like usually Slovakian hydrologists and Polish hydrologists come and join us. So it's some kind of experience exchange. And during this event last year, we had a great opportunity to exchange the experiences with almost the whole Europe, even with some virtual greetings and meetings from Canada or US. Yeah, that's another part of this, is such a brainstorming and team building where all the people meet and enjoy the time. Yeah, as I have mentioned before, the greatest motivation was even the connected with the cooperation on the borders with the institution from Germany, Poland, Slovakia, or Austria. And you can see that we operate quite a lot, such as discharge measurements on the borders. In the whole year, it could be more than 140 joint measurements. And during these measurements, it's good to, well, it would be perfect to process and evaluate the data the same way, but every institution has a little bit different attitude for this. So we are slowly coming into one result. So let's hope that in future years we will have much similar processes. Yeah, these are only some photos of these joint measurements where every institution can choose itself if to use ADCP or point measurements, but as a result, we should meet on a certain number of the discharge that goes in the stream. Yeah, and another inspiration that was a great influence on me and my colleague was the Chauwan event in 2016, where we seen that such a big event could be organized very professional and with a great effect on the results, and even the exchange of the experiences and all these brainstormings were very valuable for us, and we wanted to well, let's say copy such an event in our region to meet with all the hydrology colleagues around our country. Yeah, I would like to mention even the inspiration from New Zealand, where we implemented the scheme for quality control for the discharge measurements, which is implemented in our database system, and it mirrors the outputs of the quality measurements in actual QREF int. As for the runoff regatta itself, we had been organizing such an event since 2015. So this year it was the 6th regatta at all. So we have quite good experiences with this channel reach. Even there are some mistakes, usually with some vegetation, but we can set even more than 4 cross sections where the ADCPs are operated. The discharge is controlled by the dam upstream. So we have a deal with the dam manager that they let the flow stable for more than 8 hours. Anyway, the problem is that the dam manager has to follow the commands from the energetic institution. So if there would be some shortcut in electricity or whatever, it can happen. They can open the gates and the flow could be much higher, but it would be very, very high chance for this. Yeah, as for the discharge measurements, I have mentioned that there were more than 30 teams with 30 ADCPs. And ADCPs were operated on 3 manual ropes, 1 electrical cableway, and 1 section was only for the remote controlled ADCPs. Stable was almost, the flow was almost stable during the time window. Moreover, we tried LSPEV method for the first time in our institution, so we were happy to have a professional of Jerome and Blaise who helped us with the preparations. And I have to say that all the participants were very happy to see this method in field. We used echo corn chips, we used the drone for the recordings, and we even used the reference targets, all the things that are usually needed. And we were able to do the 3 trials. Finally, there was always something not very well going during the trial, so just the 3rd trial was like 100% successful, and we used the data from this. Moreover, we verified the discharge with radar RP30 from the Sommer company. We used the cross section from the ADCP, and then above this cross section we collected the surface velocity data every 3 meters, and the result was quite fit to all other discharges from ADCPs. Yeah, and you can see now the results that were evaluated very quickly just after the measurements with Blaise and Jérôme. Thank you once again for all of this. And we could provide some outputs for the participants the next day, so they could see in which ADCPs outliered from the average, but most of them fitted into the 5% interval. If we had a look into 8% interval from the average, that would be all ADCPs inside. The largest source of bias was the top layer interpolation, and we know that this is issue not only because of maybe the wire, which is situated downstream of the channel reach, but even we have some issues with several stream probes where the top layer is a bit influenced, probably because of transducer maybe damage, maybe something different we're trying to find out. Yeah, there are some other results, as I've mentioned, from RP30 and from LSPE, and you can see that the discharge was more or less about those 14 cubics per second. Maybe there was a bit influence of a not very long shower, which took place in the middle of the measured time window, but it was the gouging station monitored the change in the level only in 1 centimeter. So this should not have the great influence on the discharge. Yeah, and just to finalize the summary of the event, as I've mentioned before, we're trying to develop the WMO guidelines for ADCP intercomparison. So this was one source of information and data that are implemented in these guidelines. We share the knowledge with all other experts and field users. We can provide some instrument verification for those who weren't sure about their instrument, and yes, there were some of them. Yeah, and as I've mentioned before, we have a great web page where all of these informations and data are available for download, and you are welcome to go and see this. Okay, thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry once again for the delay, but I'm glad I could finally join. Thank you.
Thanks, Libor. Questions? Yeah. Alex is ready, but other questions? No. Alex?
Yeah. Libor, you said that the event was supported by the WMO, but I was wondering what kind of support the WMO gave. Was it like financial support or scientific organization?
Well, it was in the time when all the events were slowly in process after the COVID time. So I would say it was maybe one of the first events possible to organize. So we mostly wanted to meet many big family of ADCP users. So the help was focused on finance. And I wouldn't say that there would be any problem. The amount of budget covered the accommodation for all participants. So that was great. And I think that, yeah, many or all of the participants appreciated it.
So no more questions? No. No, thanks, Libor. It was a really great experience to attend your regatta last year with Blaise, which we reached by train actually, but was long.
Yeah. Thank you for your
Alex,
yeah. It's not a question, but much more of a comment. But you in your regatta, the top layer was one of the most important source of uncertainty.
like very open in ADCP, and just I think that the Swedish, they left. But Daniel is working on the radar put to ADCP. So he tried to mount a surface velocity radar on the ADCP boat to have a measurement of the surface velocity and to be able to have a nice top extrapolation and a consistent top extrapolation. So I think that it's something very interesting that we should have a look at.
Yeah, definitely. It would help, yeah. And yeah, I'm ready for any cooperation with this. Perfect. Okay, so thank you once more again. If there's no question, I'm supposed to go back to my family. 2 more hours drive, so I will have to leave. Okay.
Yes, thanks, Libor. I will share my screen. But attends, tu avais chargé ta présentation? Ah, bon. We're just uploading the last presentation. Martin, you have uploaded? You already done? Yeah. This one. Yes, perfect. Right. So we move to Martin's presentation about ADCP hydrometry in Poland.
Hello. My name is Marcin Drodikowski. I come from Poland. The first thing I want to say is we are both with my colleagues. We are very pleased to be here. We are very excited also. We've had friends and also we've met new friends who is very exciting. I'll just give you a brief information who we are, what we are doing, because we just want to say hello. We are for the first time here. So we represent 2 institutions. First is Institute of Meteorology and Water Management. Is a national service, hydrology and meteorology service, 2 services in one. And I am a representative of the science, the research. I come from Wrocław University of Science and Technology. Brief information about our national service. That's why I think we could be a good partner as a Poland to gather with you in the ADCP venture, because Poland is quite a big country, but it has lots of stations, mostly automated. At least, but nowadays it's mostly automated. We border with our colleagues in Czechia. We have a close relation. We are always since 2015 also our partners in we conduct in the regatta. So it's very nice. Also, it's very nice experience. Also, we border with Germany, also Slovakia. Here is Ukraine, Lithuania, Latvia, and here Russia. But on the east side, we have less cooperation than with our colleagues with Slovakia, Czechia, and Germany. Libor said that we are conducting measurements, simultaneously measurements on the border cooperation. So I also said that we are doing it with Czech colleagues and with our colleagues from Germany, from the last border located the Sault Brenaz and in Oder River. Poland have two big rivers. It is Oder River, jointly with Czech Catholics, and this one, Stula, that lies to the in all through the whole country. The Stula River is more natural river than Oder, because on the Oder River, in the basin, there is located lots of hydropower. So we have many types of conditions that we can measure. Here we have mountains, and so we also have the sea. So there is very arid conditions. So lots of experience. Okay, the hydrometeorological, our national service mostly do forecasts, but as you know, to have a good forecast, you need to have good data. That's why we are here today. That's why we are cooperating. The national service cooperates with my university, for example, because we want to have good data. Okay.
Sorry, I'm back. Okay. Okay. Good work. Yeah.
Absolutely. And a few words about my university. I'm representative of Faculty of Environmental Engineering. I also have worked in an institute for 15 years. I was a hydrologist. Now I'm a hydrologist lecturer. I teach about hydrology. I do some hydrometry on the Faculty of Environmental Engineering. This is a very wide area of research and our cooperation with also with business and manufacturers. So I think that also is very fine experience. Oh, it's not working.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, interrupting. Is it working? No, no. On my side, it's changing the slide.
You can visit our site, and see what we are doing in details. Okay. That is not very important. Because
Try again.
I am nearly finished. Oh, sorry. Okay.
This is the right slides.
Okay. So I'll just we use okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is what we do. Our faculty of environmental. That's okay.
Just, yeah.
Store water, and once again, water. What was our motivation to, or is still our motivation to analyze ADCPs, the hydrology, is was mostly a flood, big flood that came to us in 2010, and it was flood both on Odra and Vistula. So I can say that whole country was flooded. That time we was on the process to modernize and automatize our network. So it was very good time to verify our work, our methods, and we discovered that we need new methods because there is lots of new expectations from the water framework, from the hydrological modeling, and to keep the people at their own level. Yes, that's why we would like to open the cooperation, because actually we have nearly 20 years of experience. But I must admit it's very interesting, because even though we used the ECPs from 2002, we did nothing or less with the uncertainty analysis. So mostly what we do is to the DCPs. We have very also TMPIs or context. We use every kind of equipment, but our activity is limited only to use. The analyses are very poor. That's why we will try in future. Nowadays we are trying to see what you are doing, and we would like to do it for us as well. Okay, so actually we are at the end of the project when we use commonly presented by you tool, and we took our measurements, and now we try to see how good or how bad they are, and then we will discuss internally. We will discuss what was good or what was better. I think that in the near time we also could have some final presentation to show you what was our results. So it's very. I will skip it because it's not very important. But I also want to mention that we also do some kind of regattas, the intercomparison in our country, and this is a small picture of one of it. It was done maybe 10 years ago, but I would like to present that we also do it, but it's very internal for that moment. Actually, we are trying to use the ISO methods, all the methods we use, and like I said, probably next year we will go back to you and show what was the result and our conclusion. Okay, so I promise you that it will be very short presentation, just to say who we are and what we are doing, and I'm trying to the bank. So thank you very much for your attention, and we are open for cooperation. Eventually, if you have any question, I'm also open.
Alex will have.
No?
Yes, I have.
No?
Yeah. Okay. So you're trying to make a new uncertainty analysis method for ADCP?
No.
No, okay, just apply method that exists. And do you also use QF in the associated uncertainty model?
Yes, we will try. We will try QF, but like I show you all of the yes. Mostly all of our measurements were touch red. Okay, and so we need to figure it out. Why is it? Probably something we don't understand on the moment.
Red is not always bad.
Warning.
It's more. But we believe that after some time, our goal is green. Our goal is green. But we have studied the feature, and there is lots of methods. Nowadays, there is a lot of methods that we can analyze our measurements in the term of uncertainty, and we will try to do it.
Thanks. Another question? No question online. Okay. Okay.
Once again,
We move to the And also now it's 9:30. Yeah. Want you just
Here's a short presentation from Brenaz. I will go fast because we are all tired and I already presented many things that have already been presented by others or by myself this morning. So the point was about this point about quantifying the uncertainty. Quantifying the uncertainty of ATCP discharge measurement either by computing the uncertainty by modeling the errors or by analyzing the results of ADCP reactors. So I will basically skip this because you already know how ADCP compute discharge. The main thing is that it measures the velocities and the depth, but it measures the velocity just in this area, which is what we call the measured discharge. But there are also extrapolations of discharge near the surface, near the bottom, and near the edges. So it's not only measurement, but also modeling the discharge in some areas. So that will create different sources of errors and uncertainty. Why uncertainty matters? First, it's very useful to have some uncertainty. It's needed to improve the discharge measurement process to see where the larger errors arise. And it's also useful when you have to use the data, for instance, to build rating curves, but also to make some decisions. You need to know what is the uncertainty of your discharge data. And before you do the uncertainty analysis, it's very important to apply some quality checking, quality assurance, quality control tests. And typically, Curate and Curate are very useful tools to clean the data and to remove large errors. And then you can do some uncertainty analysis on clean data. Okay, so the problem of estimating the uncertainty of river discharge measurements first is that we have no discharge reference usually at all sites. We have not a precise discharge standard we could have for other types of measurements, like in industrial areas. They can have very precise standards. We have not. We have several uncertainty components to estimate. Some are linked to the instruments, and those are perhaps the easiest to estimate. But then we have the parameters of the extrapolation models we have in the discharge computation, that bring more difficult error sources. We also have errors due to the size, the cross-section, to the flow conditions, and other errors due to operator skills, deployment procedure, field procedure, and so on. And those are very difficult to put into equations to model compared to more traditional sources of error. So that's the issue. We have two types of errors, the random errors and correlated, and the systematic or bias errors that are fully or partially correlated. And we have two approaches, actually. We have what we call the propagation method, which is quite conventional. So it's this sketch here. So the propagation method, in the propagation method, you estimate the uncertainty by modeling the errors. You estimate the uncertainty on your inputs, the basic measurements, and then you propagate these elementary uncertainties towards the final results, which is discharge. So typically, that will be the methods implemented in Curate, for instance. And we have the other way around, the empirical way, or the interlaboratory method. It's quite classical in other fields of measurement, but that we show we can apply to discharge measurements as well, repeating the measurements, so organizing regattas. So the two methods are regulated by international documents, ISO documents, and they are supposed to give consistent results. But the empirical method will provide the average uncertainty of a given measurement technique in given conditions, whereas the propagation methods will provide an uncertainty estimate for each of the discharge measurements we want to analyze. Okay, so about regattas or repeated measurement experiments or intercomparisons, usually the main objective is what is called proficiency testing, or test de non-déconnance in French. Or what Kevin called verification. So you want to check that your instruments, your procedures, your operators are okay and find consistent results with the others. So for that kind of experiments, we need, of course, basic things like safety, good access, practical aspects, and also we need that constant discharge that is quite difficult to have. Yesterday we had the problem again, and we need quite consistent procedures. Then, if we want to compute the uncertainty, we need to first we need to assume that all the participants are equal or they have equivalent performance. We also need to repeat measurements, which can be a problem for some strain gauging techniques like these ones, current meters or current meters suspended from a bridge, or surface velocity radars, or any type of strain gauging technique. We can repeat the measurements, but sometimes it takes quite a long time compared to just one AGC crossing of a river. But then to compute the uncertainty, we need to repeat the measurements at least twice. I'd say at least 4 or 6 times. And the largest number of repetitions you have, the more precise will be the uncertainty estimation. That's why we asked for 12 transects. Usually in France, we just do 6 transects to measure discharge, sometimes only 4. But for uncertainty estimations, it's always good to have more transects, more repetitions. And actually, it's also good for efficiency testing to check for systematic errors. And also, if we want to assess some uncertainty sources separately, we'll have to design the experiment so that we cover those factors. For instance, when we organized the Chauvin 2016 experiment, we wanted to isolate the site effect, the cross-section effect. So we had to circulate all the operators over several cross-sections to analyze these effects. And that's what we intended to do with that artificial river here, due to the flood condition. Okay, so this is not only for AGC, actually it can be done for any strain gauging technique. I won't detail this, but basically we repeat the measurements. So each team at each cross-section will repeat the measurements and provide a series of discharge results. And basically what the method does is to estimate standard deviations. One standard deviation is the average variability of one operator, what we call the repeatability. And we also have another standard deviation, which is which quantifies the variability of the mean results across the participants. Basically, that's this. And we can compute the discharge uncertainty by combining the two sources of variability. the intra and inter-laboratory variabilities. And you can see here that there are those N and P variables. So P is the number of operators and N is the number of transits. So usually when we measure the discharge of a river, we have only one T, one ATC. So P equals 1, but we can repeat an average N transits. So from the results of a given experiment, with this equation, we can predict what would be the uncertainty of a discharge measured from the average of P ADCPs and doing each of them doing N transits. So yesterday we did 12 transits, but using CRAM or for instance, you can say, I want to estimate the uncertainty of a measurement that would include only 6 or 4 transits, because we have estimated these standard deviations. Okay, so in France, we have done this for quite a long time now, starting in 2009 at the beginning, but we have all these large-scale intercomparison events, but we also have a lot of local or regional events organized locally. Some of them here, like in Corney or Sault River experiments here, can be annually organized with quite many operators, but sometimes there are only 4 ADCP. You can organize a regatta with only 3 or 4 ADCPs and just repeating 4 transects. And it's still useful, and you can still apply the same methods and compute your uncertainty. Okay, so I take this nice example already presented by Igor. So last year we were with the Czech colleagues and colleagues from 11 European countries there. Again, some advertising for CRAM, so CRAM, the software, the CRAM with a CRAM. Software developed by Ez, and built on QRF-int. It's some repeated application of QRF-int to a list of ADCP measurements. All the ADCP measurements you have in the folder, CRAM will post-process them, applying QRF-int, and you can ask for the uncertainty result. So using both approaches, so the Oursin method for computing the uncertainty of each ADCP measurement, and applying the empirical approach, so estimating those standard deviations and computing the average uncertainty of the group in the given conditions of the experiment. Okay, so yeah. I've already said that. Interesting thing, perhaps you saw in one of Libor's slides, there was one result, I think it's from the Slovak team, that was out of the error band. That was the raw data we collected on site, but after application of QRF-int, we detected that there was some flow disturbance in the upper parts of the ensembles. And if you remove this and replace by a good extrapolation, then I don't know where they are, but they get you. The measurement was consistent with the others. I'm just applying QRF with default parameters. So it was a good example of the value of QRF. And we got this overall average uncertainty for Oursin, so the green uncertainty here, about 6%. Sorry. And yeah, the empirical uncertainty was a bit higher, about 8%. And that is something we often see, that Oursin is often providing an uncertainty estimate that is lower than the empirical estimate. So that's a bit of a concern for us. Perhaps we are underestimating the uncertainty with Oursin. The detail of the uncertainty sources. So the good thing with this kind of methods that for each team you can have the decomposition the contributions of different sources of error, and you can see where you on which components you could try to work and reduce the overall uncertainty. So Blaise presented this morning. We started to collect data from many countries, many services, to build a first. It's not a database. It's just a bunch of data on Blaise's computer. But it was already very interesting to analyze, to compare the deviations from the reference for different types of ADCPs. Then you have the conditions that were explored. So I think that the Sault Brenaz 2023 regatta, so our regatta yesterday is around here, will be a new point into this. And interestingly, we use these kinds of empirical uncertainty estimates to evaluate uncertainty computation method. So for some here, and also the QREV UA, the original method that was already implemented by Dave in QREV or QREV, the QREV. So here you see there's quite a large uncertainty actually around the uncertainty estimates, and the range of empirical uncertainty from the ADCP regattas we've collected so far is not so large. It's typically between 5 and 7-8%. So it's not a very wide range to test the method. But we saw that Orsin is perhaps a bit more sensitive to variable conditions, whereas QREV provided more constant results and couldn't capture differences in uncertainty levels. Anyway, we like to compare other methods. Actually, there are others like QWorks developed in Canada, regulatory UA, another method developed in Florida, and I'm sure there are others, perhaps we are not aware of. It would be great to compare them and also to organize other internal comparisons in more difficult conditions, so we have higher uncertainty references. Okay, that's the perspective. So a very good thing that thanks to user-friendly software like QREV in MS as well, we want to generalize the computation of ADCP uncertainty by the data producers themselves. Even if uncertainty can be a scary topic for some people, but thanks to this kind of user-friendly tools, we believe that, and we see that operators are more and more interested in uncertainty, looking at the uncertainty they get with no effort on math, on equations, and so on. There is this project of building an international ADCP database with the help of WMO, organizing new ADCP regattas in different conditions or uncertainty experiments. And we still have to improve the uncertainty methods, especially Orsin. We know that for moving bad conditions, for GPF reference, for invalid data, and also extrapolation scenarios, we should improve and try to avoid uncertainty underestimation in circumstances. And with Blaise, Alex, and others, and Dave, we are also working on an Orsin method for stationary ADCP that we will include into int MS, and perhaps we have also to modify the existing methods to get something more homogeneous across the methods. So that was the idea of measuring into this kind of artificial regression. We'll try to do it again in a couple of years or 3 years. Everything is ready. We just need to have no flood in the whole river. Thanks. Some questions? Move to. The question online? No. So I think we have a last presentation. That's the very last from Adrien. How we do vertical. Yeah, but not far away from. Enfin, là, c'est l'entrée de la visio. On n'était pas obligé d'utiliser le micro. Mais par contre, can you hear Adrien online?
Speak like this. You hear me?
Oh.
Someone listening?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So maybe because the microphone a bit noisy. Okay. So hello everybody. My name is Adrian, and I work for a regional office of the French Ministry of the Environment. And I will still talk about ADCs, but now it's a fixed vertical ADC. Okay. Okay, but first, as a lot of previous presentation, I will give you a few elements about the French gauging station network. So in this network, there are approximately 2,300 gauging stations that measure discharge continuously. And some of these stations are located overseas in French territories overseas. But obviously, most of the stations are located in France, in mainland France. And so there are, I said, 2,300 stations that measure flow, few hundreds more that measure only water level for flat forecasting mainly, and a few thousand more that have been working in the past that are not active right now. So about 75% of these stations are operated by the Ministry of the Environment. And within this ministry, there are regional offices. And within these offices are the hydrometry teams. And I guess most of the hydrometers yesterday came from these teams, but they are now all gone. But I come from one of the teams. Okay. And we are working close together with other flat forecasting teams. And there is a central service called Le Chapi, who is supervising everybody and everything. But also other institutions participate in flow measurements, among them hydroelectric companies, EDF, CNR, our host here, and other public agencies, water catchment managers, etc. There are many other. This is not an exhaustive list. And finally, I want to underline the role of academics and public research institutes, and the most active is probably INRAE. So Jérôme Lecor and Blaise are coming from this. Many others are coming from this research institute, and they provide technical support for everybody. Okay, so the vast majority of the data are stored in the national database, and almost all the data in this database are open access and public and can be accessed in this website. So if you are interested in, you can visit this website. And there is also an API that allows massive automatic queries on the database. And finally, there is also a website for flat forecasting broadcast, just to inform the population of planners. Okay, that's really all for the elements and a very quick overview of the national network. And now let's move to our case study that is located in Brittany. It's a very nice country. where I come from, my video just to so, okay, in this country, there is a catchment called Le Blavet. It's about 2,000 square kilometers catchment. And even if it's rainy, we still have a water quality problems during summer. Summer is July, August, September. And water is needed for ecological aspects, hydroelectricity, drinking, water supply, navigation, etc. And sometimes there is only few water left, and even not enough water for all these uses. So that's why there is a strong need of measuring the discharge and having a quite reliable and precise measurement of the discharge. This is our duty as a hydrometric service. So this is a typical river cross-section of the river, close to the outlet. It's 40 meters wide, 2 meters deep, and the metrics, the flow metrics are about 30 cubic meters per second of the annual flow. Low flows are 4 cubic meters per second, and the 2 years opening flow is about 150 cubic meters per second. We want to measure the flow of this river. But the problem is this river is used for navigation, and navigation gates are controlling the water level for navigation purposes. That means they try to keep the water level more or less stable for navigation. So that means we don't have any downstream control of the water level. And when we plot the discharge stage from gauges, we don't see the nice rating curve we would like to see. So that means using a rating curve, standard rating curve, is not a good option to measure the flow in this particular case. So another option we investigated is to measure the flow components directly. So it means measuring the cross-section velocity and the cross-section area, and multiply one by the other, and we get the stream discharge. So measuring the cross-section area is quite easy. You just have to measure the cross-section and the water stage that you can measure continuously. And then you get the cross-section area. You just have to be sure that your cross-section is stable. And this is the case for this. But measuring the velocity is a bit more complicated. There are various techniques, among them surface velocity techniques, video radar. But these techniques are, so it should be, the bar should be on the text. It's okay. It's not really possible to use these techniques here because we want to measure the river discharge for low flows in particular. And the low flow velocity is about 5 centimeters per second, so really below the capacity of these techniques. So other techniques include, that's not where anymore. Yeah, ultrasounds, like transit time and ADCPs, fixed ADCPs and transit type systems. And I will not enter the details of the advantages and problems of these techniques, but finally, we choose to install a vertical ADCP, and the nickname of this instrument is Sontec IQ+. And if you can just launch the short video, so if it works, yes. Yeah, this is our diver, and he will show you the installation. So in this,
I can switch from the beginning.
No, it's okay. It's okay. In this tube, there is a cable for electricity and data exchange with the instrument. And this cable is fixed on the river bed with a heavy chain. And here is the instrument. So this is the back of the instrument with one transducer. The level is for controlling the flatness of the installation of the instrument. This is the front of the instrument with three, we don't see really, but there are 4 transducers, and 3 of them are measuring the velocity. So,
And the click that.
Right, thanks. So this instrument measures actually 3 velocity profiles. So 1 vertical and 2 on the sides. But the output of the instrument is the average velocity along each profile. So you get 3 velocities actually. But what we do is we average all these velocities to get the mean velocity measured by the instrument. And this velocity is called the index velocity, the index. But it's not the velocity of the cross section. So to get the velocity of the channel, so the channel, the mean velocity of the cross section, we use a rating curve between the channel and the index. And to build this rating curve, we are making regular gauges as we did yesterday with regular moving ADCPs. And so now this instrument can measure the continuously V index, and using this rating curve, we can we can get the mean cross-section velocity continuously. Okay, so now this allows us to compute the discharge, and this is the result. So this is the time series, discharge time series during 2 years since we installed the instrument. So the gray curve is the instantaneous stream flow. So it's a bit noisy, but this is normal because the stream flow is varying a lot due to hydroelectric connection, hydroelectricity, and gauge movement. So it's really moving, and the red curve is the daily mean stream, and the little dots are the gauging. So one can see that we have some gaps in the time series. So it means that the station was working at this time. But the main problem we had is communication problems between the instrument and the data logger. And we really think that these problems were due to power supply to the instrument because we are using solar panel, and we get the solar panel stolen and a tree fell on the station, etc. Yeah, I didn't. But except apart from this little problem, we didn't have a major problem with the station. And actually, it's low maintenance. We don't need a lot of maintenance. So now let's have a look at the accuracy of the station. This here I plot for all the gaugings we made, the difference between the discharge measured with the regular LSD, as we did yesterday, and the value, the discharge output from the station. So what we observed is that for every gauging, the difference is below 20% and even below 15%. And this is, to me, this is quite a good result because even for regular stage discharge gauging stations, 20% of accuracy for low flow is quite good. Actually, in France, it's quite good to us. I don't know in other countries, but. And also, if I plot the error bars of the gaugings computed with QREF, but in fact, it's the ref int, and the methods is from Oursin. The error computed, the error bar is matching most of the time the value given by the station. That means for mean flow and high flows, we don't have a really big difference between the regular gaugings and the station. But for low flows, there is clearly discrepancies between regular LCP gaugings and the IQ station. And this is really related to the stream velocity. So this is the red, the purple crosses are the velocity measured by the instrument for each gauging, each regular LCP gauging. So what we observe is that when we get the highest discrepancies between regular gauging and the IQ station is when we have such very low velocities between 4 and 6 centimeters per second. And actually, this is really close to the instrument limits. But still, I'm quite happy with this result because it means that even extreme range of working of the instrument, extremely low velocities, we still get consistency between the high Cooper station and the regular motor. So it's quite positive to me. So a few words about how to operate the station. As I said, it's a low maintenance. We just try to do one annual inspection, so underwater inspection of the instrument, just to check if everything is okay and to have a little clean of the instrument. And this is after cleaning, and this was before cleaning. But that's pretty old, actually. And also how to process the data. So we have a data processing routine after each visit on site. So it's more or less every month. Raw data are inspected, and so we inspect all the raw data. It's quite similar as we do for regular state discharge stations. So we clean the data, eventually remove abnormal data, and then we compute the mean index velocity. We apply the rating curve, we check the rating curve, and then compute the mean channel velocity. We compute the cross-sectional area from the water level, and then we compute the discharge. So we do all these steps using a simple software you can download from the GDH website if you are interested. Okay, so that's all. And to conclude, the feedback on the use of this station, clearly it's much higher costs than a regular station, and it's a lot of time needed for installation. The instrument costs about 10,000 euros, and sometimes it needs underwater work, and this can be very complicated on the site. And also, it's very, very important to choose a very good site, because this is the key of the success of this kind of watering station. So if you choose, so it's really worth it to spend a lot of time in choosing this site. But when you install it, it's more complicated to operate, but not so complicated, and it's only a little bit more time consuming. So if you have a good routine, it's not a lot of more time to operate it, and it's of low maintenance, I said. If you choose a good site and you have a good operating process, the accuracy and estimation of the accuracy is about 20% for low flows. I mean 5 centimeters per second. So that's it. Thank you for your attention.
We're on time. Questions? Maybe in the chat. David,
Another question that we are also some station. We observe also that 5 centimeters per second is a little bit huge, but because it's value, it doesn't work for us. How is this value? It's very difficult for us. We have a lot of maintenance. So we not have the same feedback. Yeah, no, it's difficult for us even with 10 centimeters per second, and at 5 is definitely a stop. So I don't know, perhaps our instrumentation was not so good, but we have 4 systems, and the 4 systems up to
10 centimeters.
5 it is the end.
Okay.
Between 5 to 10 centimeters, it is difficult to use it. There is maybe a bad measurement.
Yes.
We rise to have an idea of the starch, but it's very complicated to use.
So there are maybe 2 elements of them. Sorry about that. One is the river section. It's really, really important. So you have to really lower the turbulence of the river. So it really depends on even if you have a very few turbulence, it really perturbates the data. So it depends on the site. And also is maybe you are using the flow directly, I mean the stream flow that is given by the instrument directly. Yes, so this is also this is also the difference. And if you operate, we don't use the software, and so we can really work on the velocities, on the gradient curve, and we can smooth the data, so stuff like that. So I think we have more data processing, and this maybe participate in more. So it's really recommended. Even the USGS also recommend not to use the software and to process the data manually. And I think it's a good advice. It's a bit more complicated. It's really good.
You try to use the text horizontal facilities because in some regions in most of France, Ireland, or Belgium, it's used for channelized river.
Yes.
No velocity sometimes. You have used it.
Yes, and we thought about it before installing the instrument, but I really prefer using a vertical LDCP over a horizontal LDCP when it's possible, because there are many advantages using a vertical LDCP. You get less reflections from the surface, you get less problems of range, because when you're using a horizontal LDCP, you want to go far because the river is very wide, much more than deep most of the time. So you get a problem like that. And also for inversion of flow, this is good because you can measure all the profiles. So even if you have inversion of flow at the surface that happens with wind, you can get it from this vertical profile because you get all the profile. And sometimes you can miss it when you're using horizontal LDCPs. But the problem is for some rivers, installing an instrument on the river bed at the middle of the river can be very difficult. It depends on the site because it can be really difficult and expensive because it needs underlying work. So sometimes it's really easier to install horizontal LDCPs, but if you can install a vertical one, it's much better, on my opinion.
What about the floating ADCP instead of?
Yeah. I think that's good, but for the navigation service, you not like it. Because if you are a boy,
maybe the floating debris and everything.
Yeah, everything is, and you still have to anchor it with at the bottom, so you have some. It could be a solution, but I think it's no. Again, no, it's not a solution because you have to build this gradient curve actually. It's this gradient curve, and this is really depending on the position and of the instrument. So if your floating LDCP is moving, maybe you are modifying this gradient curve, and this is not.
And did you see some loops or non-uniqueness of this gradient curve? I mean, if the flow structure or the cross section changes its shape.
No, we don't see
in tidal reaches. I guess that
yes, maybe in tidal. This is really not tidal. So no, we don't observe any loop in this curve for now. But we have few measurements in the upper part. So we concentrated in because we did not have any big flooding during the 2 years actually. So here we just have one gauging here, but most of the gaugings are for low flows. For low flows, no, we don't have so.
The global shape of the good line.
Yes, actually, I don't have it here, but yes, it's a straight line, almost.
Does it? Oh, sorry.
If you know for the fixed weather system, it is necessary to use a variable system also.
Of fixed
weather surface.
Yes.
Weather system.
Yes.
It's necessary to use the variable system also for.
Yes.
Okay, to use the
no
discharge.
Even by this.
Even by
Yeah, no. to me, it's really important to always to perform this process of data processing, and we do the same for stage discharge because we check at the level of data and then the Bailey curve, because if you use the data directly, the rays of quantum to a problem, it's really difficult. It's much more difficult to detect where this problem is coming from. So is it coming from the measurements, from the problem in the rating curve? So sometimes, for instance, you can have a problem in one beam of the instrument, or so even for radar, you have to check the velocity, check the water level, and then build this rating curve, and then you much more possibility of detecting and then acting when you have a problem.
You have to improve in the hydropotat, not in the system, in the velocity,
yes,
like the cortege.
Yes, I mean it could be a good.
There's one question in the chat.
Yes.
Is that device not affected by earthquake vibrations, if at all earthquake happens? And if so, how do you overcome this scenario?
Hopefully we don't have, we almost don't have any earthquake in this region. I really don't know if earthquake, I think if an earthquake, I think if an earthquake is very, can move this instrument, it's a terrible thing. It means that that maybe the dam upstream will fall, so everything will be destroyed. Maybe yes. It's yeah.
Okay, Michel.
One question. There is another option. What are the downstream? Have a more complex technique.
Yes. Yes, that's another possibility. But I think this possibility better works when you have some slope between the two stations, and this is done just to remove the slope because it's navigation, and it's quite a flat area. So we have very little slope. So actually, I didn't try this technique, but I guess it's quite complicated just to. And yeah, but can you? I have no idea. It works really well, but it's possible.
You said that the good section was vanished.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that but especially what's a good section. If we talk about the turbulence, I can also imagine that you need to have like a homologic flow. I mean, instead, because if you have like loading areas, then probably the link with
yes,
the velocity and the
it is the definition. So here it's I will try to back to.
I'm answering questions in the same time.
So this is I'll show you the section is. So we are looking for low flow. So definitely the river is flooding, and if you have a flat plane, it's difficult to work. But when for floods, we have already we have no more control of the gates. We switch to a standard rate. This is for low flow, and the good flow is when you have the maximum. I mean, you have to get the lowest turbulence. Let's say velocity, any velocities. If you compare to the mean flow. So that means you are looking for the highest velocity you find. So it's the narrowest, also cross section, and you are really looking for the best homogeneity of the flow. So it means that you are looking for a really straight channel upstream, really straight, and yes, and the section that is the narrow. And of course, they stable. If you don't have stable, it's much more complicated. So to do that, we did a lot of analysis of satellite maps, etc. So at the desk, and then we made a lot of measurements with our ADCP to just not only check the discharge, but also the flow velocities with our ADCP. Yes.
Why did you decide to use this software for the velocity interface? Sontec is having its own flow pack, and why did you decide to use the ones from the manufacturer?
Other manufacturers.
Yeah. So Sontec has the flow pack software for velocity indexing, and you chose to use another software.
Yeah, not the software.
Yeah.
Yes.
Why? What are the advantages of
Because our this software it's difficult with this software, for instance, to remove raw data, or if you just want to remove abnormal type of disks or stuff like that, so you cannot do it with the software. That's the main reason.
No other questions? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Compared to discharge calculated as index and the theoretical method printed in the IQ.
Yeah. So if we implement the index velocity in the IQ software and compare it with no. Yes, we didn't. So it's a possibility. I didn't have time to do it, but I think it could be nice. But still, even if you have a good match, there is still one day where something goes wrong, and then you have to understand what is going wrong, and it's better than to have all this process, so you can check everything.
And it's very time consuming, and you just have one item like that means that you need to have some people with very specific keys to analyze the IQ data.
Not a very easy. Because it's time bit complicated. Est-ce que c'est compliqué de faire ça? C'est no.
It's recorded. I'm just afraid that perhaps we underestimate the uncertainty of your ADCP gauging. So for very low flows. So perhaps maybe correct for some, you will have larger error bars, and then you will see that there is no disagreement.
Okay.
That's none of it.
But still, even if I get 30% uncertainty, it's still good.
Yeah. But just to say that I'm afraid we underestimate uncertainty.
Yeah,
very slow flows. Perhaps the station is not so bad. Yeah. So, merci. Thank you.
Normally, we have finished. We are in time, which is, I'm quite surprised today that we keep the schedule, which is not the tradition in the TDH meetings. But j'ai bien entendu merci à everyone. I'm sorry, no, it's recorded. Julie has a comment. Important meeting with you on Monday. Taking a grant. So normally Aurélien was supposed to do the wrap-up and farewell as the local organizer of these days, but he asked me to do it now. He's very tired. At least for the workshop, I'm very grateful to all the speakers, all the people who followed the discussions online, even more to people who presented online, which was not easy due to the local conditions. I really enjoyed the 3 days. I think it was a great event, in spite of the road conditions, of course. We will try again to have this regatta in the artificial river. So thanks everyone. It's very nice to see all these ideas and efforts on the ADCP measurements. So we could say that 20 years after the start of GDH, and we saw in the presentations that usually around at the beginning of the year 2000, that's when the services really started to use the ADCP quite a lot. And 20 years after that, we did a lot of job of work everywhere around the world to check the quality of the ADCP measurements, improve technique, but we still have a lot of questions to be solved and new ideas. So that's really cool. Yeah, thanks everyone, and a big thank you to Aurélien, especially because we can testify that he he had to work a lot on this organization. Yeah, thank you.